The sixth step of the POTAC process is the consultation. So this is the partner consultation. So in this step, the director ends up deciding if the client is to be contacted or if the job just goes straight to compilation. So this is where I guess the director might end up, having a phone call or a meeting just to go through the financials before the job goes to, the job goes to compilation, being step 7. As I just mentioned, there you go, the phone call to the client or the client meeting is arranged. Now, if there are any changes to the financials or to any accounts, if they're minimal, then that just goes straight back to the client manager and gets finalized and then sent back to the director. If there's a major change, so for example, there might be some dividends that need to be paid or something's being completely missed. There might be a situation where the client actually has PSI income and that hasn't been taken into account. So something major would end up going back to the reviewer, being the manager or director, generally the manager, just to highlight what's being missed. So that is a way for the reviewer to also learn from, I guess, their mistakes. Once that's done, and there'll be videos on the other points below here, but the financials get re-indexed as well as the ITRs as final in VC. So as you're preparing the work previously, you would have, for example, DFS for draft financial statement or DITR for draft income tax return. These then get re-indexed to have FDFS, so final draft, FFS, final financial statements, or FITR, final income tax return, etc. This is just so we know that there's no draft ones left and it's all been finalized. Then you would download the detailed general ledger for all the accounts for all the years. So what this does is, if there has been any changes made in the next financial year that relate back to the previous one, then we can always go back and have a look at the detailed GL just to see where the changes have occurred. From there, you'll export the Xero workpaper pack and save under the ledgers folder and archive the Xero workpaper. So that means we've still got that, that we can always go back and refer to. The pre-billing sheets will be prepared and the WIP will be cleaned up. So once that's done, then once a job's done, the accountant would then prepare these pre-billing sheets, which again, there'll be a separate video on how to do this. And they would go through the WIP and just anything that needs to be written off, they would highlight how much would also need to, there would be for a write-on, if there is a write-on. And they would populate this in the pre-billing sheet, which then gets sent to the manager to have a look at, and depending on what's involved, it generally would go to the director to have the final approval. From there, need to just make sure that the job summary checklist has been fully completed. So with that one, you would end up having to fill, all this would need to be filled in. So it just has to make sure that, we're ticking all the boxes. So for example, the Xero workpaper packs exported, lock date set in Xero. So this is all done after the final review. So it's a really good way to, I guess, finalize the job. Once that's all been done, then the director or manager approves the final pack. So this is the consultation step. Generally, we call it the partner consultation, and it's just the final step before we, I guess, compile the work.